So we have officially wrapped up the Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn momentous occasion, and what a night it was. I was there live. I'll never forget a single minute of it. It was unbelievable. The atmosphere, it was just brilliant. It was a great venue, Tottenham Stadium, sold out, absolutely fantastic. I'm going to go through some of the key points in the card, and then I'm going to go round by round, my breakdown and my scorecards and my thought of the judges' scorecards of the main event. And we've got Viddal Riley's dominant win. Viddal Riley's just flawless win. It's probably the best performance. It's probably the highest level performance we've seen in the whole night. It was just, his game plan was spot on. I mean, it wasn't very fan friendly, but it was dripping with class. There was so many little things he was doing that just dripped with class, and I'm really proud of him. I've always rooted for Viddal. I've watched Viddal's YouTube channel longer than I've watched boxing, and I love boxing and I love Viddal, so it's just great to see him take the traditional route. He's undefeated, he's young, was the English and now the British champion, and we should really get behind him as a community, because this man, there's nothing, if my kids looked up to him, I'd be very, very happy. He's one of them ones. I think he's only good for the sport. He doesn't fear anyone. He'll fight anyone. And he's very, very good. And I think he'll go all the way. I'm telling you now, undisputed champion. Undisputed, I'm telling you now. We also had Anthony Yarde versus Lyndon Arthur 3. I was expecting Yarde to finish him, but Lyndon Arthur came out looking bigger, and I think he was in better shape than I've ever seen him, really. Like, he had more muscle on him, and I think he had a lot more power than I remember him having. And in the first 5 rounds, I think Yarde did nick a couple, but Lyndon was doing a really good job at boxing him and sticking a jab on him, which I said Yarde struggles with in my breakdown. But Yarde did a really good job, much like Chris did, Eubank Jr. Yarde did a very good job of reading the situation just before midway through the fight and making an adjustment in the middle of the fight. A lot of champions talk about making mid-fight adjustments, and they say it's a mark of a true high-level fighter, and I think he showed it, because what he started to do is that he started to impose his physicality on Lyndon, walk him down, beat him up, and make it more dirty and more of a fight and more of a brawl, which suited him a lot more. I mean, he put Lyndon through some beatings in the later rounds. It was very hard. It was actually quite hard to watch, but it was a great performance. And I would really love to see Anthony Yarde fight Joshua Buatsi next, because that fight's been going on for too long to not happen. So, and the rest of the division seems to be tied up, because you've got Bivol and Beterbiev probably fighting for the third time, and you've got Callum Smith and Benavidez seem to. I think I've heard that they're going to be fighting next. So it only leaves really Anthony Yarde and Buatsi to fight next, and that's going to be an absolute war. And I really hope that happens. The interviews coming out of Chris Eubank Sr. and Jr. about each other before the fight happened, on fight week especially, because as cold as Eubank Jr. is, it rattled me as a fan hearing it was very distressing to hear some of the stuff that Eubank Sr. was saying about him, like calling him a disgrace, and he will never be in his corner. It made me very uncomfortable, and the speech that Eubank Jr. gave, it hit me very hard, and it kind of solidified my position as a fan of his for the rest of his career. And he's given me so many memorable moments, Eubank. I was really worried for him, and especially the weight cut. The whole, with hindsight, it was perfect. As a fan, it was perfect. I'll get into that later. As a fan, it was perfect matchmaking, because sorry, I just got a notification on my phone of Logan Paul uploading a fucking music video, the dickhead. But anyway, as a fan, it was perfect because it made Chris weak enough for Conor to do some things, but not completely depleted where he couldn't take the damage. But me missing weight gave me bad energy. I didn't like seeing it. And then the whole rehydration thing of having to wait and only put on 10 pounds overnight, and then being able to put on the weight, it didn't give me good vibes. And having that happen on top of the gloves that Conor Benn was using, which were apparently made out of illegal material, and on top of that, your own dad saying all these horrible shit, and his dad's not anyone. He's one of the greatest British boxers of all time. And then on top of that, he's getting fined for literally everything under the sun, and it just felt like it was building up, and all this pressure was on him, and he was sitting there with like the weight of the world on his shoulders, backed into a corner against a younger, hungrier, quote unquote, younger, hungrier guy, supposed to be faster, supposed to be on the come up. Hadn't, he's been training for ages, had a bit of inactivity, but he'll have no injuries on him. He'll be fresh, and he won't have cut any weight, and he'll just be 100% raring to go for the knockout. It was concerning. As a fan, it was very concerning. When I tell you that I've never heard a louder noise than when the door opened on the big screen in the arena. The door opened of a black car with tinted windows, and Chris Eubank Sr. walks out with smiling. I've never heard a louder noise than the crowd's roar reaction of seeing Eubank Sr. walk out and Eubank Jr. walk into frame, and they hug and they walk through, and Eubank Jr.'s got a tiny little smirk on his face to say, yeah, we fucking got you as a belter. And it was just such a brilliant moment. I'll never forget. I was so pumped seeing that. And then the camera cut to Conor Benn's locker room, watching them stock still as the door opens, and then you see the look on Conor Benn's face when he turns away, and he's like, okay, I've got a real fucking fight on my hands here. If people say he was like rattled or anything, he might have been a little bit, but I think all it showed was like, alright, it's getting real now, it's fucking go time. Conor Benn's ring walk did impress me. He did look nervous to me though. I did see it on his eyes, like his eyes were darting around a bit. And to me, he looked a little bit nervous, but it's good. He should be nervous, It's the way he is as a person. He's very like emotional and tense, and he does react. So seeing that would only make him sharper, faster, sharper, more switched on. But I think he was doing a bit too much. He seemed to be burning energy. After his ring walk, it went on for a while, and then it finally cut out. And then Simply the Best comes on, and the screen switches on, and it's Eubank Sr. tying Junior's robe, and they're taking forever to leave the locker room. It's just brilliant. It was just amazing. And then they have they get onto that little platform where they stand on before they make the final walk to the ring, and that little interlude song comes on. And I didn't know this, but the lyrics to that song were heavily, heavily relatable to the death of Sebastian, Chris Eubank Jr.'s younger brother. It's such a powerful thing to put in, and I'm really glad he did that, because it's great to represent like that. I think he even had him on his shorts as well. I love Eubank Jr. He's just class, man, isn't he? He's just pure class. He's just brilliant. Through that little interlude song, it went from Simply the Best to that little sad, great tribute to Sebastian, and then Still Dre plays from the concert band, and it was just the look on Eubank Jr.'s face and Senior. It was just go time. This is what he was made for, these occasions. It was just, I can't put it into words how much he owned the moment and took control. And he jumps over the top rope, and oh man, it's just, I love it when he does that. I love it so much. The referee was Victor Loughlin. I don't know if anyone else does, but I fucking hate Victor Loughlin. I know he's Scottish and I should be supporting him because I'm Scottish, but oh my god, the guy sucks as a ref and as a judge. What I'm glad about is he got booed through the whole night, so that was something. But I do not like Victor Loughlin. I don't hate many people, but he might be one of them. I'm not gonna lie. That fucking guy, man, he seems to ruin everything. But he did alright in this fight, to be fair to him. Although he did tell Chris off for doing barely anything. So both opened up very fast in round one. Eubank Jr. seemed to be able to time Conor pretty well, and it was very clear that Conor's inactivity was affecting him right off the jump. His movement seemed... What it was that his movement seemed that he had to think about doing it, and the muscle memory wasn't there. He seemed to be quite, it wasn't natural. He had to force his body to, do all the little subtle movements to get himself into position in order to blitz in on him. And while he was doing that, Eubank Jr. was popping him with the jab, just finding his shots, slipping Conor's shots, just getting a feel for the round. And it was a very exciting round, but Not many big shots were landing. It was a good feeling out process for Chris, and for Connor it was kind of like a message to say, right, I got to lock in now. I gave it 10-9 Chris, round 1, 10-9 Chris, making it 10-9 in total. Round 2, it was clear that Connor opened up a lot sharper, with his movement in particular, like his footwork, bouncing in and out, and the foot feints were very good from Connor in this round. I really liked them. I think it's my favourite part of Connor's game. It's very common in a blitz fighter to have. I just like seeing it. And also, it was clear that Chris was still there in this round. It wasn't like it was like a dominant round for Connor, but I would edge this round to Connor. I think he landed the bigger shots, and I think Chris he might have switched off a wee bit. That round 10-9 to Connor, with because they had like quite an even score in terms of jabs, but Connor was working off of Chris's jab, landing bigger shots more often than Chris was. So I gave it to Connor, 10-9 Connor, which gives it 19-19 to both fighters. In the first 30 seconds of round 3, Connor stepped in with a jab, fell short. Eubank Jr. he slipped off to an angle and followed it back with a double jab. Very nice. I think there's a photo of it, of Connor's jab on his shoulder, and he's popping Connor with his jab 2 times, and it's just very clean. And Chris's jab is one that is very underrated. And the thing about Conor Benn's style is that when he blitzes in, it's normally with 1 shot or like 2 at most. So when he did go in and Chris avoided it or took it or whatever, Chris knew that Conor's just looking to retreat and go back again. So whenever Conor would go in, Chris would follow him and know that nothing's coming back because Conor's looking to reset every time he goes in. So that's when Chris would work. He would poke on the outside, poke. He knew Conor would come in. He'd either slip it, get hit with it, or he'd smother it, and then he'd follow him back, and that's when Chris would land his own big shots. And it was it was pretty smart. It's quite textbook, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's very efficient. Most of the round was for Chris, although there was a moment later on in the round where Conor seems to kind of shake him a little bit when they trade left hooks. It might have been a balance thing for Chris Eubank, but I think it landed and it looked very impressive. So it was a good shot, but Chris did come back in that round with a sneaky body shot that no one seems to pick up on, but he did land a straight right to the body, and Conor had to reset and go straight back. You had to circle back to the centre of the ring and just kind of like switch back and go again. I also think Chris Eubank Jr.'s movement in this round was a lot more sharper than it was in the second round. Having said all this, I would maybe edge it to Conor Benn, having him 1 point up going into the 4th round, 29-28. This round, in round 4, I noticed that Conor Benn was biting on a lot of movements that Chris Eubank was doing, feints or even just his punches. He was just reacting to a lot of things Chris Eubank was doing in this round. First 30 seconds of the round, Eubank Jr. landed a heavy. I think it was his first 3 or more punch combination, and he went body and head with it and mixed it up very nice. And you could see the impact of the shots. It would physically move, even when Conor blocked it, it would physically move him. He would just get shoved around by these shots. And Chris really did have the power advantage, I'd say, in this fight. It was whenever he loaded up, it was a sight to see, actually. It was fucking crazy. And it was clear to see that, unlike Conor, Chris was still just finding his shots, and he wasn't loading up with particularly many things. He was just touching and feeling it and finding his range and looking for what shots where he was finding success with, and how to build those combinations in order to put more power on his shots later on, which I love. I love it when fighters build their stuff up and build momentum, and that just seems to me like what he was doing. He showed very nice shot selection with his body jabs and his jabs and his left hooks and his uppercuts. He landed a very, very nice uppercut in that round. It might have been his best shot in the whole fight. He missed a body jab. It was like a filler jab. He went low with the body and sneaked up right through Conor's guard with an uppercut. It's Eubank Jr.'s best combination. He goes body jab and he goes uppercut to the head. He dropped Liam Smith with it. He caught Zarmeta with it hundreds of times. That's all he hit Gary O'Sullivan with, basically. He does it his whole career, and it caught Conor clean. And fair play to Conor for taking it, because it looks horrid. It looks horrid. I definitely give that round to Chris Eubank Jr. 10-9 Chris, making it 38-38, heading into the 5th round. I would say this was a pretty standard. I think it was probably the most dominant round of the fight in terms of just pure outboxing. I think it was a pretty clear Chris Eubank Jr. round, 10-9 easy. Makes it 48-47 to Chris Eubank Jr. on my scorecard heading into round 6. Round 6, I noticed that both fighters were losing their shape a little bit more. They looked a little bit more ragged. I'd say the cleaner shots probably did come from Conor Benn, but more shots and especially more jabs were landing from Chris. So I would give it Chris again, 58-56 to Chris Eubank Jr. heading into round 7. I definitely think this round was all Chris. It was all his range and especially his pace. He was basically landing with whatever he wanted to in this round. 10-9 Chris, 68-65 to Eubank Jr. heading into round 8. This round you could tell Conor knew, or he at least been told by his corner, that Chris had a few too many good rounds in a row and he came out fast and swinging hard. Chris immediately matched his energy and fucking went for it right back with him. He also walked Conor on countless shots. You get reminded of it in every round, but Conor can take a punch very well and he's never shown that before. It's very impressive. He could really be the nail. He's always been the hammer, but he showed in this fight he can also be the nail. Towards the end of this round, Conor did seem to land something big on Chris. However, I don't think it was enough, so I still give it 10-9 Chris Eubank Jr., which makes it 78-74 heading into round 9. In 9, it was very clear that Eubank Jr. was getting tired. He was still marching Conor down, still not going anywhere, and he was still throwing more punches. Conor always seems to land one big shot, but then gets drowned back and gets hammered by another 8 shots coming back from Chris. And you can't really, as a judge, I don't think you should really be ignoring just how much harder one fighter is working than the other. And I think Eubank Jr.'s experience really showed how to take rounds. And if there's one thing Eubank Jr. has shown, he knows how to win a round when it counts. With this in all of his decision losses, you see it with Billy Joe. It's a tight fight. I personally thought he beat Billy Joe. It's a tight fight. It's a very tight fight, and then in the last round he goes for it and puts Billy Joe in a beating and nearly stops him. You should see that last round. He's covered in blood and he just goes for it. Same thing with George Groves. He gets beat down the whole night, and in round 12 he comes up and he tries to go for him and he takes that round. While he lost both of those decisions, it shows that he knows what rounds count and how to win them. And then he used that skill set. It was probably his best work, was using his experience and using his work rate to his advantage. Had round 9 going to Chris again, 10-9 Chris Eubank Jr., making it 88-83 heading into round 10. In round 10, Conor landed some very nice body shots, especially with his left hand. It was actually, as the fight went on and Chris became more of a closer range fighter, it was a shot that served Conor very well throughout the end of the fight, was his left hook to the body. Chris was just a madman and just fought through it. You can take a shot like no one else, Chris. It's ridiculous. Chris did make the round closer, as I say, with his work rate, but I would actually give this round to Conor, making it 97-94 for Chris Eubank Jr. Round 11, Chris walks him down, ignores basically anything Conor throws at him, and he goes for him, and he puts him under a bit of a pacing. Chris Eubank Jr. He just doesn't let Conor have an inch of that tiny ring that, funnily enough, Conor Benn asked for, and Eubank Jr. was the one that made the most of it, and Conor needed the space. And now you see why Eubank Jr. allowed him to have it, because people thought Eubank Jr. was going to be dancing, when really he was the bull and Conor was trying to be the matador, when he was just getting absolutely stampeded. In round 12, you see the amazing work rate that not only Eubank Jr. puts into fights, but you see how hard he trains. As the older, heavier, and dehydrated man, he puts on a pace that the 7-year younger fighter can't cope with. Even when Eubank Jr. has nothing left in the tank, he puts on the highest punch output round he's ever done and tries to really, really batter Conor Benn from pillar to post and hammer him. And Conor's still in there throwing back with him, but on the ropes he can't generate the power and he can't circle out because his legs didn't have enough in them to push Chris off. And he did land one big shot towards the end, but mostly Eubank Jr. just beat him down. It was vicious and it was spiteful and it was amazing to see. I could not believe what I was witnessing in that last round. Eubank Jr. really is a special fighter, and we really need to start appreciating him more, because he might even retire now. We don't know. I also gave round 12 to Eubank Jr., making my final scorecard 117 to 112, so I had it wider than the judges. Now, when I was in the arena, I thought the judges had it way too wide. I thought I had it a draw, if not Chris winning by a point. And it's very interesting, having rewatched it with with obviously excitement, but without getting overexcited and looking at objectively what punches were landing and who was doing more work and who was having higher success in more consistent time frame. And it was Chris. Really, the judges did a good job, because I might have scored it too nicely for Chris, but I genuinely had at one point even further in Chris's favour. Seeing Eubank Jr. and Senior celebrate together in the ring when they were announced the winner, it's everything fight fans love about fighting, and it was like real life Creed. It was honestly just brilliant, and I'm so proud of Eubank Jr. I'm so happy that he won. It's one of the best shows I could have ever went to, and I'm so happy that my first ever boxing show, when Viddal Riley became British champion and Eubank Jr. beat Benn. I think Benn should stay at welterweight. He should go down. I know the money's good, but he's got money fights. I'm telling you, he's got loads of money fights in welterweight. He should go down and throw himself into the mix of the lightweight tournament that's going on right now with Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, and Jaron Boots Ennis. If Benn throws his name in there, that's fireworks. It's honestly just pure excitement. I'd love to see him fight Ryan Garcia. I would love it so much. It would be brilliant. As for Eubank Jr., I would take the rest of this year off. Just watch. If Canelo gets past Skull, and if Canelo gets past Crawford, which is a big if, but if he beats Crawford, he should go for a Canelo fight either the end of this year or next year at super middleweight for all the belts. Undisputed. You should just go for it. And then I don't think he can. I mean, he's never been the guy to go for all the belts and all the legacy. He's just been the guy to give really exciting shows, to be the showman. He's even been world champion a couple of times. He's been IBO champion 3 times. You know, like he's had a good career, and he's brilliant, and he's super exciting, and he's class. He's pure class. I love Eubank Jr. I think he should wait and just enjoy himself and celebrate this win and go for Canelo. And he wanted Canelo for years, and he's just never really gotten like the big belt fight, you know, for everything, for all the marbles. And I would love to see him fight Canelo Alvarez. Would he win? Fuck no, but I would still love to see it. What an event that was. I loved it. I hope everyone else loved it. And boxing is on fire right now. And subscribe and like and all that. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much.